Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about lithium polymer batteries. All I need to know about running them more efficiently so you don't blow them up or catch them on fire. Ready? Let's go. So when it comes to Lipo batteries, what types are there? The types that we use basically for the FPV drones are going to be for like a 1S battery. So here I show you this is a 1S battery that's 250 milliamps, a 2S battery that's 3000 milliamps, a 3S battery that's 550 milliamps, and then I'm showing you these two 4S batteries just because they're different milliamps. We have the 4S battery that's 850 milliamps, that's a little bit smaller, and then a large one, a 4S battery also that's 1300 milliamps. Then this last battery, it's a 6S battery that's 1100 milliamps. So how do you charge these batteries? You want to charge these batteries so then they're up to about 4.2 volts per cell, and that's the highest maximum voltage you'd want for these batteries when you fly your drones. And when you want to store them, like when you're done, the best way to keep the longevity of the battery is to always put them back down to storage after you fly them. Also, if you don't fly them, it's best to put it back on storage mode as well. Some people use a discharge mechanism. In my case, I use a ISDT discharger where you just plug it in here and it's going to dissipate the heat and it'll actually discharge your battery in about 5 minutes. Also, one thing too is you don't want your cells to go below 3 volts. Eventually, if your cell does go below 3 volts, like if you don't hear the battery telling you it's low voltage, eventually when you unplug it, the voltage has a tendency to go back up a little bit, but sometimes not enough. You could revive it still if you charge it. It's a little bit risky, and in that case it's best to either tag it with something like a piece of white tape since it went below 3 and just kind of monitor it. So this is pretty good because I haven't checked these batteries in a while. Some are kind of old too, so we could just check these real quick. I could show you how to what to look for. We'll start off with the 2S battery. So if we look at this 2S battery, first of all, it has an XT30 connector, so I'm going to plug in this adapter. It doesn't matter. You can either make one, but I just happen to have one of these that someone gave to me. So just kind of plug this in, because most chargers use an XT60 connector, which is the bigger plug, right? So we'll plug this in, and we'll plug in the balance lead here. So this one reads right away that it's a 2S battery. So this is 3000 milliamps. So when you charge it, you want to change your battery settings. So you go in here and you change the setting. It right away finds out that it's a 2S battery, right? So what you want to do is when you set it up, you go to make sure it's set for LiPo, because here you could change it to lithium ion, which is a different type of a battery. The cell voltage will be 4.2 volts. And here for the current setting, you always want to match the milliamps. In this case, it's going to be 3.0 amps. So we'll run it here to 3.0 amps. And you start charging. Now when you start charging it, what you want to check is to see if it's still a good battery, is to make sure the battery's not hot or even warm. Sometimes it'll get a little warm, but not warm enough to warm your hands or anything like that. And the second thing you want to do is check the individual voltages. If you click on the channel, this particular one will scroll up and it'll tell you, okay, you have a 2S battery, they're both at 4.2 volts, so that's good. So here we have the 6S battery, 1100 milliamps. So it's going to read it as a 6S battery. We're 1100, so we're going to change this to 1.1 amps. And give it a few seconds to measure the resistance. So if we look at the resistance, the 6 different cells are pretty close to each other, which is a good sign. And now with some amps being put into this battery, the resistance has changed. As a rule of thumb here, usually the resistance, if it's less than 10, it's still a pretty new battery. And then the 10 to 20 is kind of like you've been using the battery for quite a while. But if the resistance goes over 20, then it's most likely best to get rid of that battery, or one, it could either catch on fire and get you in trouble, or two, it's just not going to perform as well as it did when it was brand new. So this battery is, like I said, I rotate these batteries and I always keep them on storage mode. So it's really helped quite a bit. I've had these batteries for about 3 to 4 months, and it looks like the resistance is still good. So this is the Forest battery, the 850 milliamp battery. And if we look at the resistance on here, we have a difference from 11, 15, and 13.6. Now the difference is not too big, but the range is within kind of like the working range for resistance between 10 and 20. Like I said, if you go past 20, it's considered a very old battery and close to dangerous. One cell did go up to 16, so that's getting pretty close. I'd probably say if that cell goes up to closer to 20, I'd probably get rid of this battery and get something new for this one. In this case, this battery is still good. Let's check the 1300 milliamp battery and see how that does. So this is the Forest 1300 milliamp battery. Let's look at the resistance. You just want to give it some time to actually measure it more accurately. If you do it too early, you get some initial numbers that aren't as accurate, but if you wait a little longer, it'll start to stabilize as far as the actual resistance that it measures. So that's a 1300. We're at 5, 8, 9, and 11, which is not ideal because now you have some cells that are in kind of the new mode, and you have one cell that's going up to the kind of the working resistance range. So it's okay, but it's something I have to look at and make sure that the difference doesn't get too large. Like if that number 2 were to spike up to 15 or 16, it's probably something's going on with this battery that needs to be, and this battery most likely will have to be replaced if it gets that bad. At this point, it's kind of on the edge, considering now it's been charging for a little bit and the resistance is stabilized, so I'd say it's something I have to watch. Let's look at the 3S battery. It's 550 milliamps, and it uses an XT30 connector, so we have to use an adapter again. So here it reads 3 cells. Need the balance connector on there. So now we'll move this up to 0.6, which is close to 550, and we'll start charging again and give it a few minutes to calculate the resistance. This is an old battery, but it's been in storage mode for a while. And right now I can only guess what the resistance is. So let's wait a few minutes. Okay, let's take a look at this resistance here. The cell voltage looks pretty consistent. So now we see some real numbers here. We have 2 cells that are above 20, so it's 25 and 26, which almost automatically says to get rid of this battery. You've got one at 15, which is even the difference. You've got a difference of 10 milliohms, and that's not good. So this battery is considered a bad battery and definitely has to be replaced. So now you know what to look for in a new and good battery. This one doesn't have as much heat, but I bet if we charge it all the way, it'll probably get pretty warm since the resistance is so high. So as a last note, I just wanted to show you, suppose it's a rainy day, you had like 5 batteries ready to charge and you're ready to fly, and it starts to rain for some reason. So you can't really fly your drone because it's raining, right? So the best thing to do is to use a battery discharger. This is also from ISDT. It's an FD, let's see, it's an FD200. And the nice thing about it is it powers itself using the battery, since the battery has power, right? So you just plug it in here, you just hit a couple numbers. So right now it's at 4S, I just have to set it to 6S, and it's going to start discharging. So while this discharges, it takes about 5 minutes. I'll just show you a little bit. It also has Bluetooth. When it's done, you just unplug it, or else it's going to beep forever. So that's what I use to discharge these batteries if I don't have the chance to fly, but I charge a bunch of them. So that took about 5 minutes. I know I sped it up, but so if you have 5 batteries, you spend another 20 minutes or 25 minutes just to discharge them, and it's worth it because then you're saving the life of your battery, and you'll save money because then you don't have to replace the battery as quick as you usually would. So that's the ISDT discharger. So what did we learn today? We learned that I've got a few good batteries and one really bad battery. So with that in mind, you just have to remember, check your batteries while they're charging. It's best to do it individually. I didn't talk about parallel charging, but individually is really the best way to charge batteries. This way you can monitor it better. You could check for the heat, you could check for the voltage. In this case, you could check for the resistance. Resistance really is the biggest part of this, because if there's too much difference in the resistance, it's a bad battery. If the resistance is within the range, a fairly new battery is going to be less than 10. Between 10 and 20 is kind of like a working range for the battery. It's good to still use it. But anything past 20, it's going to be considered an old bad battery. So you want to keep this kind of like a safety measure. That way you can get the maximum time for each battery. And second of all, you don't cause a fire anywhere. So hopefully this video is helpful for you. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.